Hello everyone, it's Dennie Heye here once again for the SLA Europe podcast, and today we're back with Juanita Richardson. How are you?
Hi Denny, fine, thank you very much.
For the listeners who've never heard of you, could you introduce yourself?
Certainly. So my name is Juanita Richardson. I am a candidate for President-elect of SLA. I am currently an associate at Dysart & Jones, and I also teach at the University of Toronto's iSchool here in Toronto, as well as at in the LIT program at college. I have worked on both sides of the information industry. So the first half of my career I spent in special libraries, and the second half of the career I've spent consulting and working for vendors. So I've been a member of SLA ever since I graduated from library school, actually. So that was in 1987. So I've been a member for a while now.
Good to hear that you've seen both sides of the profession. So today we'll go through a couple of questions so people can get to know you a little bit better, and then if people have follow-up questions, we'll provide them contact details on the SLA Europe blog. So let's kick off with a general question. What does SLA represent to you, and why does that matter?
Okay. I think that's a great question, and I think that that's something that we've explored a little bit on the SLA blog with the candidates' questions. But to me, really, SLA represents three opportunities. One, continuing education. Two, professional development, and three, connections. So just in terms of the continuing education, I think members come to our organization as either new librarians, recently graduated librarians, or are perhaps new to a corporate or government or academic environment where they need to manage specialized collections of information or specialized bodies of knowledge. And oftentimes this information management is now occurring outside of that box that we call a library. But regardless, we come into this profession knowing that we've signed up for lifelong learning. So we hold professional degrees. Our library and information degrees prepare us to think in a certain way, but we don't get trained to do this job. So where else are new librarians going to receive that very targeted ongoing education in their field, other than from SLA, an organization whose focus is really on connecting people and information? So that's what I think is really the first opportunity. If I just continue on, so regarding professional development, SLA can be a really nice, safe, secure environment where members can try out new professional roles before they even take them on in their workplace. So for example, SLA is where you can develop and polish your public speaking skills, which was certainly my first experience with SLA in terms of professional development. And before you have that chance to explore those public speaking skills before you get up in front of your senior management at work and make a presentation. Or SLA is where you can chair a committee or become a leader of your chapter or division, even before you get that promotion at work. So you're developing those leadership skills within SLA that are necessary to enable you to take on those new opportunities in the workplace. So that's kind of the second opportunity, that continuing education piece. My final piece is regarding connections. So, where else really are you going to find a whole host of people who get what you do and why it's important? That's one of the key benefits I think we receive is just that the colleagues, the collegiality with the other members, so that when you need new ideas, you have a place to turn, and so that when you're facing challenges in your workplace, you can get feedback and get advice. And I also think that when it comes a time when it's your turn to give advice and ideas and feedback to that next generation of librarians. So you're there then to take ownership of our profession and to ensure that the new librarians coming out of our iSchools have these same opportunities to learn and develop and to pay it forward. I think SLA is our responsibility.
Okay. Good. I especially like the part about the connection, because I think that was the one that triggered me when I was a young information professional. I'm thinking, I want to talk to my peers across the world, and the minute you join, it's like 11,000 or something peers, and that was just feel like you were coming into like a family. Everyone is helpful. Everyone is willing. Everyone has been where you are. So. Okay, so one other thing is that SLA, of course, it's more than 100 years old, and it's changing. So when you look at SLA, what do you think should SLA start doing?
Okay, well, I think we've gone back and forth on this for a long time, and there have certainly been some conversations most recently about things that SLA is doing and things that SLA could do differently or things SLA should stop doing. And so I just want to preface that conversation. So before we get started on picking apart what we're doing, not doing, need to do more of, etc., I just want to say that SLA is not unique in facing the challenges we're currently facing. Most of the other professional associations, other than those associations that the members are required to join, like here in Canada, for example, if you're an accountant, if you're a chartered accountant, you must belong to the Canadian Institute of Chartered Accountants, as an example. So other than those types of associations, most of the other associations out there are facing the same challenges that we are at SLA. And I also think that we do have a superb staff who are well aware of our strengths and our weaknesses and the opportunities out there and the threats. And I think they're always looking out for our best interests. So kind of with that caveat, what should SLA start doing? What I would like to see done, and we've done some of it in the past, not extensively, and not nearly to the degree I think that we need to do it, but that is real research into the library and information services field. I think that the faculties at our iSchool do great research, but then it's often just locked up in those ivory towers. And I think we have an opportunity to join them on that research, in addition to conducting our own, and then maybe outside of academia, we should consider partnering with organizations that already do some research, like Outsell, just as one example. Because I think we need more case studies, we need more best practices, and we need to do the research, and then we need to publish it. So if we think of an example like the Harvard Business Review, just as one example of a publication that showcases its research and trends and new practices, I think that's the kind of professional journal our information outlook should be. And I think that what's really surprising is that for a knowledge profession, we have been pretty bad at transferring our own intelligence throughout our community.
Okay, and when we flip the coin, so that's what you want to start doing. What's something that you think that SLA should stop doing? Okay,
so I'm going to go out on a limb here, because this is not a message about what SLA should stop doing in terms of a service or a member benefit. This is really a message to the members of SLA. I actually think that what we need to stop doing, we need to stop whining and complaining. And I think we need to stop thinking, what's in it for me? Because I think by and large, much of our membership has already, in fact, received what's in it for them. We've taken it. I know I have. We've taken advantage of the continuing education. We've benefited from those professional development opportunities. We've capitalized on the connections and the networking. So I think we now have a different type of benefit to enjoy. I think we have the opportunity to benefit from paying it forward, giving something back to our community, investing in our community, investing in the next generation of librarians, so that the library profession remains strong. So that's what I would like to see us stop doing.
Oh, I like that statement a lot. Should be the theme for next year.
Stop whining or whinging.
Yeah, we need to rephrase that a little bit. Like, I can see the T-shirt. Okay, continuing along that line, what do you think SLA should do more of? So what's something that we do really well but should do more of?
And again, this is not necessarily a service or a benefit, but in fact is more of an attitude, because I think, it is simply the case. The times, they are a-changing, and we're not going to go home again. Things are not going to be like it was 10 years ago, ever, really. So I think that what we need to do is be prepared as an association to be, and amongst the membership, to be more nimble, more flexible. I think we need to enable our board of directors, who we have elected, to make decisions and to act on them. And I think we should be prepared to consider more of those ideas that perhaps we previously thought were way out there. I think there's no more way out there anymore. These times are not for the faint of heart. I think it's time to recognize that the environment is changing around us, and that we need to be prepared to change as well.
Love it. I think that's indeed, because the environment is changing so fast that sometimes you even think, oh, I just blinked and something changed, and it's better to be ready for the change and keep changing, keep going with the changes.
Yep.
Okay, so then now wrapping up that set of questions, what do you think does SLA should do less of?
Okay, so again, this is, and I'll
I
tell
felt
you
it
why in a
coming.
little
Yeah.
bit about why I'm not naming a whole bunch of benefits and services that I think SLA should come up with, and I'll go there in a couple of minutes.
Yep.
But in terms of what we should do less of, I think we should do less navel gazing.
Mm-hmm.
We tend to be pretty myopic about our profession and about our industry, and we tend to keep our heads down, and we go to conference and talk amongst ourselves about how we did good. I think realistically, our industry is much wider than just that wedge of the pie that we inhabit.
Yep.
So I think we really need to lift our heads up and take a longer view. So I think that what we need to do less of is that kind of, well, as I said, navel gazing, looking down and just pondering about ourselves amongst ourselves. I think we need to really take the broader view.
Yeah, and I think that's a point that I recognize myself. So I've been an information professional for over 10 years now. But sometimes you tell people that, they ask people, what do you do? What's your background? Like, why didn't I know you people existed? And then I think it's something that we should all learn is, look broader, broadcast your message, what you can do, because that's how we're going to get forward.
Exactly. Because the information industry is large, and actually, I'm not going to say the information industry by and large is doing well, but mm-hmm. there's a substantial industry out there, and we play in a very small mm-hmm. part, and yet our skills are far broader than that, and we can make a far bigger impact if we just lifted our heads up.
Okay. Then our last question, and then you can elaborate on that. So, what do you think it matters for SLA to be more internationally oriented, and how do you propose SLA will support that?
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, I absolutely think that being international is of critical import, really for two reasons. One, for the growth opportunity. There are information professionals around the world. I think that they're oftentimes a very good fit with SLA, so I think that there's a real growth opportunity there. But I think even more importantly, it's what we can learn from taking a broader perspective. As long as we're just coming to the table from just our own experiences, mm-hmm. I don't think we have as great an opportunity to learn. So, but keep in mind that Canada really is also international to SLA. We've just been at the table for so long that everybody thinks that we've always been there. Uh-huh. But in fact, the Canadian members have had a significant impact on SLA's methods and language so far, even. So it's simply not the case that we're not also international, in fact, mm-hmm. Canada is. And it's just that I think Canada is a smaller pond. So what that means is that our leaders tend to percolate to the top sooner than they might elsewhere in larger ponds. So as a result, we've brought a lot of really young leadership to SLA. And I'm thinking of one particular example, the example of Jane Dysart, who was really young when she was president of SLA. I think she was like in her very early 30s, which is mm-hmm. young. But also some of the other Canadian leaders who rose up quickly, like Stephen Abram and Patricia Sia and Daniel Lee and Sylvia Piggott, Debbie Schachter, Rebecca Jones, Ulla Stricker, just to name a few. So there have been a lot of Canadians who have percolated up quickly in the SLA world. And then when we start thinking about how SLA will support international activities, and before I really get there, regarding the opportunities that I see that the international units could bring to the table, I kind of wanted to raise or address the elephant in the room. And this was what I alluded to earlier mm-hmm. in terms of new services and benefits that SLA could possibly emerge with. The reality is that as an association, we are in somewhat dire financial straits right now. Now, keep in mind that I did say other associations are facing the same challenges, the challenges of declining membership and an aging membership and declining revenue. So we're not alone in this boat. But I'm not worried about those problems for the associations. I'm trying to think of what this means for SLA. Mm-hmm. And what it means is that unfortunately SLA right now doesn't have the wherewithal to really undertake every new initiative it might like to do. Mm-hmm. So that means that we, the units, the chapters and divisions, I think have to be more prepared to do our parts. So when I think about the question, so I think the question should be less about how SLA should support international activities, and kind of switch it up a bit and say instead, the question should be more about what we as international chapters can do to support and improve SLA. And so with that in mind, thinking from that perspective, I had a thought. So I would like to see us try another international conference. Were you at the Global 2000 conference in Brighton?
No, unfortunately not. But that would be close for me.
I was actually, yes, exactly. I was actually on the board of directors during that conference time, and so I did go to Brighton. It was I thought it was a great conference, very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that when we think of a conference like that, rather than necessarily just trying to transplant the SLA annual conference outside of North America and expecting certain numbers and certain revenues,
mm-hmm.
because that's not necessarily a realistic expectation, we might think that a chapter, say for example the European chapter, could bring maybe a slightly different type of conference to the table. So for example, I know that TFPL used to run a very successful conference for leaders. I think it was called EBIC.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think that the conference for leaders, like targeting senior management, was an absolutely brilliant idea, because there is certainly demand within the SLA population for continuing education and professional development targeted to senior management, which oftentimes doesn't really happen at our SLA annual conference. So why not try to take on this kind of project? So instead of taking the approach, what can SLA do to support units outside of the U.S., we should be saying, what do we have? Or we have a unique international perspective, so what can we bring to the table that will support SLA? So those are my thoughts.
Oh, I like it. It's a call to action here. Good. So with that, I think we've gone through the questions I wanted to ask you. I think our members have now got a good impression of who you are, of what your ideas are, what your thought-provoking statements are. Any last words you wanted to share with our listeners?
My slogan for this campaign is "Pay it forward," and I wholeheartedly believe that that's where we are now. We're no longer the mentality of what's in it for me, or and depending upon your employer to potentially pay for you,
mm-hmm.
or the other expectation of what someone else is going to do for you. That can't be what we're all about anymore.
No.
I think we all need to pay it forward, invest in our community, and our profession and our association will be stronger for it.
That's a good thought, and I think that's something wonderful to end this interview with. So I really want to thank you for spending the time with us. Please stay on the line while I wrap up the call here. So to our listeners, this was the first interview, so next time we'll interview Kate Arnold, and then we can listen to both recordings. If you have questions, we'll put the contact details for both the candidates on our blog, so you can make sure that if you have follow-up questions, to post them there. And I think there's also an opportunity at the upcoming conference, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so then once again, thank you very much for your time, and speak to you soon.
Thank you very much, Denny. That was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Okay, cheers.
Bye now.